When I was a kid, people were allowed to smoke in restaurants. Prior to the 1980s, they smoked wherever they wanted, but by the time I was old enough to not be a little shit in public, you would walk into a fancy place like Chi-Chi's or Bennigan's, and the host would ask you if you preferred smoking or non-smoking. We would pick non-smoking, so we would be seated at a table that would sometimes be just a few feet away from a sign that said smoking section this way, with a table a few feet on the other side of that sign full of people blowing smoke out of their lungs, which would then float into the air and slowly drift past that sign and into our lungs, as smoke does. It's a bit like having a no peeing section in a public pool. You can't really separate an open-air restaurant into smoking and non-smoking sections. Similarly, you cannot clearly and cleanly divide the planet Earth into disease and non-disease sections. For instance, as I have mentioned previously, the United States eradicated measles in the year 2000 thanks to a commitment to getting everyone vaccinated. However, measles did continue to show up over the years, and there would be these little outbreaks because people would come in from outside of the country carrying the disease. And if they happened to interact with enough people, especially unvaccinated people, then measles would flare up and it would need to be put out with quick action from public health officials. That's how things used to go. And in 2020, of course, COVID spread around the world very quickly, and it was only thanks to quick and decisive action that countries like New Zealand managed to make it through relatively unscathed before they opened up. Public health officials warned that in order to truly end the pandemic, we would not only need to vaccinate the vast majority of people in developed countries like the United States, but also in countries that might not be able to afford Moderna and Pfizer's fast-tracked mRNA vaccines. That's why people like Peter Hotez worked to develop a vaccine that could be produced quickly and inexpensively using technology available in those countries, which absolutely saved lives. But of course, the developed world then just stopped caring about COVID, so we weren't actually able to end the pandemic after all. But my point is that diseases do not recognize borders, which is just one reason we should be completely disgusted by the latest idiocy from U.S. Secretary of Health and Human Services, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. Last week, RFK announced that he would be withdrawing the United States from funding Gavi, the Vaccine Alliance.
A major concern that I share with the president is how the World Health Organization and Gavi partnered together during the COVID-19 pandemic to recommend best practices for social media companies to silence dissenting views, to stifle free speech and legitimate questions during that period. In addition, Gavi has continued to make questionable recommendations encouraging pregnant women to receive COVID-19 vaccines. Having said that, there's much that I admire about Gavi, especially its commitment to making medicine affordable to all the world's people. Gavi has done that part of its job very well. Unfortunately, in its zeal to promote universal vaccination, it has neglected the key issue of vaccine safety. When vaccine safety issues have come before Gavi, Gavi has treated them not as a patient health problem, but as a public relations problem. One example is the DTP vaccine, which the developed world replaced a long time ago with a much safer DTaP vaccine. A landmark study in 2017 by 5 highly regarded mainstream vaccine experts found that girls vaccinated with DTP were 10 times more likely to die from all causes in the first 6 months of life than those children who were unvaccinated. The 2017 study was published in an Elsevier peer-reviewed journal, which collaborates with The Lancet, and was funded by the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Denmark and the European Union. The authors of this study were 5 internationally revered deities of vaccine research, all of whom are strong vaccine proponents. The study therefore concluded, and I quote, "All currently available evidence suggests that the DTP vaccine may kill more children from other causes than it saves from diphtheria, tetanus, or pertussis." End quote. Gavi has nonetheless promoted the DTP vaccine heavily in developing countries. It's now the most popular vaccine in the world, despite compelling peer-reviewed research by eminent scientists associating it with very high increases in all-cause mortality among children. When the science was inconvenient, Gavi ignored the science. I call on Gavi today to re-earn the public trust and to justify the $8 billion that America has provided in funding since 2001. And I'll tell you how to start taking vaccine safety seriously. Consider the best science available, even when the science contradicts established paradigms. Until that happens, the United States won't contribute more to Gavi. Define success not just in terms of the number of vaccines delivered, but on their rigorously measured overall impacts. Business as usual is over. Unaccountable and opaque policymaking is over. I invite all of you to join us in a new era of evidence-based medicine, gold standard science, and integrity. Thank you very much.
This may not shock you, but not a single thing RFK Jr. said in that video is true. No one stifled anyone's free speech over the COVID vaccine. The COVID vaccine is absolutely safe for pregnant women, as the American College of Obstetricians and Gynecologists pointed out in May, when RFK used the same false claim to stop recommending the vaccine to pregnant people. It is very clear that COVID-19 infection during pregnancy can be catastrophic and lead to major disability, and it can cause devastating consequences for families. The COVID-19 vaccine is safe during pregnancy, and vaccination can protect our patients and their infants after birth. In fact, growing evidence shows just how much vaccination during pregnancy protects the infant after birth. With the vast majority of hospitalized infants less than 6 months of age, those who are not yet eligible for vaccination, born to unvaccinated mothers. The landmark 2017 study RFK mentioned, which found the DTP vaccine increased all-cause mortality, was not, in fact, a landmark study. In fact, it was a small observational study involving a few hundred children. A 2022 randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial of 50,000 children found that the DTP vaccine decreased all-cause mortality. Yet RFK has the complete lack of self-awareness to accuse Gavi of ignoring the science that they find inconvenient. Sure. By their own estimates, Gavi has saved the lives of nearly 19 million children around the world since its founding in 2000. As Hannah Quiros recently pointed out in The Atlantic, 19 countries have graduated from the program and are now able to fund their own vaccinations, with Indonesia moving on to become a funder of the alliance. And according to the director of the World Health Organization, since 2000, the number of children who die each year before they reach the age of 5 has fallen by more than half, largely due to the power of vaccines. By Gavi's estimates, the U.S. canceling its Biden-era pledge to provide $1.2 billion this donation cycle could lead to the deaths of more than 1 million children who otherwise would have lived. Let's just highlight that. RFK Jr. is going to kill 1 million children. 1 million. If you visit impactcounter.com, you can see a running total estimate of how many people have died thus far thanks to the Trump administration cutting funding to necessary programs. As of this recording, it's at 106,140 adults and 220,745 children. Those are now officially rookie numbers. RFK Jr. is about to commit mass murder. As Edward Nierenberg commented on Blue Sky, if I were HHS secretary and my goal were to kill as many children as possible, it would be difficult to distinguish the actions I would take from those that Kennedy has taken. By the way, this isn't a bug, it's a feature. I've talked a lot over the past several years about a growing movement of eugenicists, and this is just where that ultimately leads, is a rich white guy in the United States deciding it's okay for 1 million poor brown children to die because they just weren't strong enough to fight off the disease that we have a safe and effective vaccine for. One of Gavi's other major funders is the Gates Foundation, which pledged $1.6 billion to the alliance over the next 5 years, which is awesome. With an estimated net worth of more than $100 billion, Bill Gates could easily just cover for the United States dropping out of this alliance. So, usually my call to action at the end of a video is asking you to call your representatives or vote them out or vote for someone better. But the United States is simply no longer a democracy, and most Democrat representatives no longer bother fighting for their constituents. We are now officially an oligarchy run by tech billionaires. So with that in mind, if you happen to live or be visiting Venice and see Bill Gates wandering around town during Jeff Bezos's $50 million multi-day wedding, just tap him on the shoulder and ask if he would mind just shooting a text to his secretary, asking them to write another check and save 1 million lives. If he feels like it or whatever. Hey everybody, thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like. If you loved the video, please subscribe. And if you think the world could use more videos like this and you happen to have a few bucks laying around, head to patreon.com/Rebecca and join an awesome community of nerds like the people whose names you see on the screen right now. Thanks.